if you really feel called that it's time for you to break free from your perfectionism, from this paradox that we're talking about, and you know that you're ready to embrace a philosophy that says that progress is better than perfection, always. And you're ready to get to a place where you can set goals and celebrate yourself, celebrate those victories each and every step along the way, and also love the mistakes, love the lows, which I know is easier said than done. But those are really where we learn. That's where we learn about ourselves, about who we truly are. And when you're able to prioritize based on the impact that you're going to make, integrate new practical strategies that allow you to have flexibility, that give you space for your humanity.
This is Euphoric Evolution, a podcast all about inner spiritual growth for abundance, where we bridge the spiritual into the practical, the energetic into the physical. I'm Makhosi. I'm a spiritual teacher and oracle, speaker and author, and I'm passionate about catalyzing tomorrow's leaders into consciousness and transformation. So, if you're a spiritual seeker and know you're called for more, let's begin your transformation.
Is perfectionism actually keeping you from finding alignment and creating a life that feels as good as it looks? This one's a doozy because it's something that I see so many high achievers, entrepreneurs, executives, leaders really struggle with, because we live in a world that really praises you if you operate from a level of quote unquote excellence. And what creates this fascinating paradox is that the whole time that you are trying to be perfect and trying to create perfect things, you actually are less likely to create something that is close to perfect. Now, first we have to completely just dismiss the idea that anything can be perfect, because that's not a thing. And even if you do feel like you get close to perfection with something, I would argue that the more quote unquote perfect something is, that actually the less soul it has, right? If you think about what we might consider perfection, like the first thing that pops in my mind is a lot of people would think that Kim Kardashian's house is perfect. I mean, at least on the surface level. If you've ever seen any video of her taking people through tours of her home, it is completely white, clean, stark lines everywhere, not a crumb in sight. It's like basically a mental hospital with sofas. It's perfect, but also it lacks life, completely lacks life. If we look at what is actually aligned for nature and in nature, do you know of any trees you've ever passed that had a perfect number of limbs that all were exactly at 70-degree angles? No, that would be very weird. So even nature demonstrates to us that what is perfect is not the human idea of perfection. So what I find as I've worked with so many incredible leaders who demonstrate or experience their own perfectionism is that this is one of the leading blocks to actually being able to find alignment, because we, number one, are missing opportunities and we're slow to move on opportunities because we're trying to make a thing perfect. But the truth is that we cannot really gain insight, data, clarity on the actions that we're doing, the things that we're putting out there, the new paths that we're walking and steps that we're taking. We can't gain insight on those until we actually put them out, until we actually take the step first. And that's when we're able to then gather some information that allows for us to make something better. And in this case, we can say, your life or your business or your relationship can be made better only when you finally start to move and progress. It's this perfectionism that can manifest in so many ways. If you are working with a team or even working with putting new things out in the world, it can result in you being extremely overcritical of your own work. And you'll find that you are constantly revising or trying to hunt for that misspelled word. Or, is this the perfect way that I could say this? Is there a better way that I can say this? And how would you know what the best way to say something is until you actually put it out in the world and get some feedback, right? Does it land with people? If it doesn't land with people, then that's when you know, okay, maybe this could be better. We often find that I'm just going to say it the way that I want to say it. We are kind of obsessed with ourselves in that we think about how we would perceive a thing and try and make it perfect through that lens. But this creates the possibility for so much more miscommunication and so much inefficiency, right? Things can take so long to put out there because you're trying to make something perfect before you even have gathered information. This also really results in you experiencing a lot of anxiety, feeling dissatisfied when things aren't up to your standards. And also it creates this fear of failure. I shared with some clients this week, actually 2 different clients who were really struggling with what path do I take? Is this the right, quote unquote, right path? And you're not going to know what the right path is until you gain data. You cannot figure this out from your head. Now, from your mind, listen, your mind is a beautiful tool and it has so much insight and data from the past, but also you don't know the vast majority of things. For our entire life, we will not know the vast majority of things. So the one way that we can guarantee that we will create success, that we will find alignment is to fail more, essentially. Because let's say that it takes you 3 months to make a choice and actually take a step. And then that doesn't work. But let's say that another person, it only takes them 1 week to make a choice. Well, they have failed 10 times by the time you took 1 step, right? And so that means, let's say that it actually, maybe they put a new offer out, right? And it actually worked. Then they had all this time before you even put out the first iteration. They had all this time to refine it. You see, we have lost a lot of the value of refinement, and the pressure gets to be so high, especially if you've already created success to a certain degree. You might fear how people will judge you if you put something out and it doesn't work. Or, you try something and fall on your face. But I would argue that that makes you so much more connected, so much more real to people when you try and learn and then don't take it personally. That's the other piece as well, is we sometimes want to be perfect because we think that everything that we do is a permanent thing and it means something about who we are. But we can only really grow and create levels of excellence in ourselves by failing multiple times. Because every time we do that, we gain new insight. What also is interesting about this is that in constantly waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect result, you will find it almost never happens. It almost never comes. In fact, you could wait your entire life and that moment never come. This is really the difference between the right time and divine timing. You see, it's always the right time to decide. Always. Now, when you may see the result of something, of that decision, you might see the result of taking that aligned action. It may take certain things lining up, but it is always the right time to make the decision. That doesn't mean you have to act at that exact moment, but you want to start moving in that direction, right? And then you're gathering data along the way. I also see that this is how people stay disconnected from their calling, because you're trying to use past information to find your way, to find your purpose, to find what will ultimately fulfill you. But if you knew what that was, you would already be experiencing it, right? If you knew what that was, you would already be experiencing it. So the only way that you can be guided towards that, the only way that your intuition can show you who you're here to be, what you're here to do, how you're here to do it, is for you to experiment, for you to try different things and gather new insight, gather new data, gather new evidence that points you towards your calling. Because you will get very clear insight that, hey, maybe this thing that drains you is not for you. So maybe you try something else and you find something that energizes you. You find something that you love, or at least some aspect of it that you love. And you carry that forward with you and you refine. You refine your life as if it's a beautiful sculpture. I also see that perfectionism creates a lot of exhaustion and a lot of unnecessary pressure to perform. Now, I love performance. I love being at your very best. But the pressure to be perfect out of the gate when you haven't given yourself time to refine. Hey, that rhymed. Oh, watch out. I will drop this podcast and become a rapper. I'm just kidding. But these unrealistic expectations put so much unnecessary pressure on you to get it right, to get it perfect the first time. And this is a very common cause for stagnation. You likely actually know what your next step is, but because it won't be perfect, you hold yourself back from doing it. Now, there's a few ways that you can start to today navigate and shift out of perfectionism, because ultimately the point is that you're yearning to have success, but you don't want to have this nagging, constant pressure to be perfect. You ultimately want and desire to have a way of working and a way of living that is actually fulfilling and also effective. Okay? Effective doesn't have to be perfect. So this is where progress, and you're able to learn lessons along the way, and that becomes more valuable than the illusion of being flawless. It's actually in your imperfection that you can create flawlessness. Well, as close to flawless as you can get. So how do we start to shift this? Well, first, really becoming aware of any of the deep-seated beliefs that anything less than perfection is failure. That's first and foremost. And this is really tricky. You're constantly being inundated. You're constantly receiving messages that you have to be perfect in order to be worthy. You have to be perfect in order to be excellent. That you have to be perfect in order to be genius. By the way, even genius is not perfect. You can be in the top 1% and not be anywhere near perfect and always have room for growth. The other piece as well that comes to the forefront is really learning how to detach your perceived failures from your identity. You see, just because you created something that wasn't perfect and it didn't go well, it doesn't mean that you are a failure. It just means that that action wasn't the most effective, or that offer wasn't the best, or it wasn't something that was desired. And that means absolutely nothing. It means nothing about you except for maybe there's a better way to do things. Maybe there's something that you can let go of. Maybe you can let go of constantly over preparing and resisting, because that is what is blocking your genuine growth and evolution, as well as innovation. Innovation comes from the real life, real time gathering that data. So with all that said, if you really feel called that it's time for you to break free from your perfectionism, from this paradox that we're talking about, and you know that you're ready to embrace a philosophy that says that progress is better than perfection, always. And you're ready to get to a place where you can set goals and celebrate yourself, celebrate those victories each and every step along the way, and also love the mistakes, love the lows, which I know is easier said than done. But those are really where we learn. That's where we learn about ourselves, about who we truly are. And when you're able to prioritize based on the impact that you're going to make, integrate new practical strategies that allow you to have flexibility, that give you space for your humanity and for others' humanities, you're going to be able to cultivate a mindset that really appreciates continuous evolution. And this is going to reduce your stress so much when you're able to embody this way of being. So if this resonates with you and you're eager to transform your approach for greater success and satisfaction, you can always DM me on Instagram at The Royal Shaman, or you can email me and my team at hello@theroyalshaman.com. And we'll share with you how we can support you. And also feel free to share this with your fellow perfectionist friend. See you soon.
Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Euphoric Evolution. If you found this valuable, be sure to like, subscribe, and leave a review with your biggest takeaway. Be sure to share with someone you care about if you know they'll also find value in this episode. You can also visit theroyalshaman.com to take my free consciousness quiz, where you'll uncover your current stage of consciousness, identify your current blockages, and define which steps you can take next to align with your highest potential. You can also see the show notes to find our socials. In Euphoria.